Hello and welcome to History Tweaks for my first alternate history scenario. The Mauryan Empire. It was arguably one of the biggest empires to rule the Indian subcontinent. It was also the first to unite the populace into one. It reached its heights under Emperor Ashoka and stretched from the Hindu Kush mountains in the northwest to the Krishna River in south and Bengal to the east. Ashoka took the throne in 268 BCE after staging a coup against his elder brother Sushima. Sushima was first in line to the throne after Bindusara, but after Bindusara's death, Ashoka conspired with the ministers who also disliked Sushima and led him into a trap where he was killed, and hence Ashoka took the throne. He also killed his younger brothers to remove any threats to his rule. In the early years of his reign, Ashoka was a very tyrannical ruler, sending thousands to the prison, which came to be known as Ashoka's Hell due to the brutality meted out to the prisoners there. He also sent many of his subjects into exile. In 265 BCE, in the fourth year of his reign, Ashoka led an army into the eastern Indian kingdom of Kalinga. Kalinga was very prosperous on account of the multiple trade routes passing through its land, and hence Ashoka wanted to conquer it. The people of Kalinga mounted a fierce resistance, bringing the casualties up to the hundreds of thousands. 150,000 people were dead on the Kalinga side and 100,000 on the Mauryan side. The genocide that followed claimed lives of thousands more. Looking at the death and destruction on the battlefield, Ashoka had a change of heart, which led him down a path of non-violence and righteousness. Following this event, Ashoka took to Buddhism. He was attracted to the religion by its ideas of non-violence and self-realization. Later in his reign, Ashoka released a moral code called the Dhamma, which enforced non-violence and morality. It also criminalized non vegetarianism, enforcing vegetarian ideals instead. He also started an aggressive campaign for propagation of Buddhism. This caused deep resentments among the Brahmin population as it stopped animal sacrifice, a chief source of food to them and their families back in the day. Nevertheless, Ashoka's reign brought to the subcontinent a good level of prosperity. Without exhausting wars, the economy flourished and people were prosperous and happy. Under Ashoka, the empire was divided into five provinces, namely Gandhara with capital Takshashila, Avanti with capital Ujjaini, Dakshina with capital Suvarnagiri, Kalinga with capital Toshali, and imperial province of Magadha with capital Patliputra, which was also the national capital. This prosperity, though, didn't last long. After Ashoka's death, due to unclear rules of succession, the control of the empire was partitioned between his son and his grandson. Then, due to a long line of incompetent monarchs and infiltration by bacteria, the provinces started to break away. And 50 years after Ashoka's reign, the empire was vastly reduced in size. The last ruler of the Mauryan dynasty was Brihadartha, who was assassinated in 185 BCE by Pushyamitra Shunga, an extremist Brahmin who was a part of the Hindu revival movement, which rose as a reaction to Ashoka's enforcement of Buddhism. The Brahmins, as I mentioned, were particularly angry at the propagation of vegetarianism by Ashoka, which stopped animal sacrifice, which was the main source of food for them and their families. This assassination led to the collapse of the empire, and a new one called Shunga Empire rose in its place. It encompassed most of the Mauryan Empire's northern and eastern lands, while the Indo Greek kingdom, a successor of Bactria, took the northwest, and Shatvana Empire took the southern and central lands. In this alternate history scenario, we would discuss about what would have happened if the Mauryan Empire didn't collapse at the time it did. We could simply propose that the rulers following Ashoka are more competent. but this would be a very simplistic solution which does not appeal to me. My point of divergence is in 283 BCE in Ujjaini. In our timeline, Ashoka had been to Ujjaini to crush a rebellion, and there he had fallen in love with a woman called Devi. She had introduced him to Buddhism, but in our timeline, Ashoka didn't pay much heed to it. In this timeline, however, he is more than just attracted to the religion. He implements its philosophies and beliefs into his own life. He is very likely to still stage the coup against Tsushima because the wheels of this event were set into motion long ago. He also kills Tsushima to remove any threats to his rule, but in this timeline he spares his younger brother's life. 265 BCE, Ashoka starts amassing an army to march into Kalinga and conquer it. But on the joint advice of his wife Asandhamitra and his brother, whom he very much liked, he deems the plan to be too costly on the empire's manpower and hence diverts the forces to conquer the states south of the river Krishna, namely the southern states of the Cholas, the Cheras, and the Pandyas. Once the southern states are subjugated, he then takes his army to the northeastern Indian states and subjugates them too. Among the newly conquered territories, the territories south of the Krishna River are incorporated into the province of Dakshina, and the province is renamed to Dravida. And the northeastern territories are incorporated into the imperial province of Magadha. Under the governor of Dravida, military expeditions are launched into Sri Lanka to subjugate the territory. The territory is conquered as a tributary state to the empire by the name of Dvipakshetra. 261 BCE, Ashoka sends an army to conquer Kalinga, but in this timeline he does not personally lead it, as he is in the southern states gaining goodwill. The war is brutal, but the genocide that followed in our timeline does not occur owing to Ashoka's already changed ideals. 260 BCE, Ashoka releases a set of rules, just like his Dhamma, but these rules are a composite between Hindu and Buddhist beliefs. And most importantly, it does not emphasize on vegetarianism. Ashoka is also more considerate toward the Hindu rituals. What this does is, it does not anger the Brahmins and the Hindus as a whole, which prevents the rise of reactionism which is seen in our timeline after the death of Ashoka. 255 BCE, Ashoka sends his daughter Sanghamitra and his son Mahinda to propagate the religion of his choice, Buddhism, to China, Tibet, and Japan. This Buddhism, though, is different from the one we know in our timeline because it is more of a composite between Buddhist, Hindu, and Jain beliefs. Over the years, Tibet falls under heavy Mauryan influence and becomes almost like a tributary state to the Mauryan Empire. Once the conquests and assimilations are over, Ashoka spends the last 15 to 20 years of his reign in Patliputra, his capital, consolidating the empire and centralizing power to his ministerial council. He also spends this time propagating Buddhism, the religion of his choice, to faraway lands. Before his death, he also names Dasharatha, his grandson, as his formal successor. What this does is it prevents the partitioning of the empire between his half blind son Kunala and Dasharatha. Under the rule of Dasharatha Maurya, revolts arise in the northwestern province of Gandhara, demanding higher regional autonomy. To prevent the province from breaking away, the demands are accepted, which results in the creation of a new province, the autonomous province of Kamboja, encompassing the western part of the province of Gandhara. Mahadharmakasita, or present day Kandahar, is made the capital of the province, and the province is put under the viceroyalty of Satakarni, Dasharatha's uncle. The remaining part of the province remains as the province of Gandhara with capital Takshashila. Next, revolts arise in the northeastern Indian states. In order to appease the revolt, the territories are detached from the imperial province of Magadha, and with present day Bengal and Bangladesh, a new province of Vanga is created with the capital at Tamdalipta. After the death of Dasharatha, his cousin Samparathi takes the throne. Under his reign, inspired by the Chola navy men, the Mauryan navy is expanded and naval expeditions are launched into the Andaman and Nicobar Islands and southeastern Asia. The Andaman and Nicobar Islands are incorporated into the autonomous province of Dvipakshetra, and Mauryan colonies are established in Southeast Asia. Samparathi also starts a process of political indoctrination to give the people of the land a unified socio political identity. By 210 BCE, diplomatic and trade relations are established with the recently unified China under the Qin dynasty. In the wake of Bactrian infiltration, the border police force is strengthened and most of it is stationed in the northwestern province of Cambodia. This means that the Bactrian Empire does not grow as big as it did in our timeline, and hence, after the collapse of the Seleucid Empire, it is conquered by the Parthians earlier on. This also means that there is no formation of the Indo Greek kingdom, which was a successor of the Bactrians. Now we could go ahead and assume that the successors of Samparathi are very competent, but that would be suggesting a completely new set of personalities ruling the empire, which would create heavy butterfly effects in the timeline. To avoid that, let us assume that the successors of Samparathi are as incompetent as they were in our timeline. But owing to more autonomy given to rebelling areas, lesser threat from Bactria, and a common socio-political identity among the people, the empire sustains till we come to the reign of Brihadaratha. In our timeline, he was assassinated by an extremist Brahmin called Pushyamitra Shunga, who was a part of the Hindu revival movement. But in this timeline, the extremist factions of the movement do not exist, owing to the fair amount of tolerance given towards Hindus and Brahmins during the reign of Ashoka. Nevertheless, to appease the rising movement, Hinduism is made co official with Buddhism as the state religion, and the laws of Dhamma, now called the Vidhana, are changed accordingly. In the following decades, the pre-existing five provinces and three autonomous regions are further partitioned to make 11 provinces and three autonomous regions, namely the autonomous province of Cambodia with capital Mahadharmakasita or modern-day Kandahar, the province of Gandhara with capital Takshashila, the province of Sindhukshetra or Sindh with capital Pattala, the province of Saurashtra or Gujarat with capital Bharokachcha, the province of Avanti with capital Ujjaini, the province of Koshala with capital Mathura, the imperial province of Magadha with capital Patliputra, which is also the capital of the empire, the province of Vanga with capital Tamralipta, the province of Brahmakshetra with capital Pragjyotisapura, the province of Vidarbha with capital Sopara, the province of Kalinga with capital Toshali, the province of Chera with capital Suvarnagiri, the province of Chola with capital Kanchipuram, the autonomous province of Dvipakshetra with capital Anantashayanapuram, the autonomous province of Tibet with capital Lhasa. At the same time, the empire also establishes friendly diplomatic and trade relations with the Roman Empire in Europe and establishes an alliance with the Han Chinese. The Parthians and the Mauryans have tensions between them, but they never go to war in order to not drain each other out. By 20 CE, the empire collapses to form the Bharatverse confederacy, a Holy Roman Empire like electorate based confederate nation where the High King is elected among the rulers of the various Rashtras or nations, giving a solid political identity to the people of this land, and a group of armies which can be summoned by the High King at the time of need to act as a united army. This change is, however, just a political one. The trade relations and the borders of the empire remain the same. The political stability in India also benefits the nations around the world in this timeline. In ancient times, India produced a high grade steel called Watts steel, which later came to be known as Damascus steel. But the political instability in our timeline meant that the production of this steel was meager. in the 1st and 2nd centuries CE. In this timeline, though, vast amounts of worth steel can be produced and exported to the trade partners of the Confederacy. The biggest benefactor from this turn of events is the Roman Empire. In our timeline, in its heyday, even though Roman Empire traded with India, meager production of Damascus steel meant that weapons made out of Damascus steel were very much a novelty in the Roman legions. This time around, though, the vast production of Damascus steel means that all the Roman legions could be equipped with high grade weapons made out of Damascus steel. Another way in which the Romans benefit from stability in the Indian subcontinent is that they can access the high quality and lightweight Indian teak wood, which means that the Roman shields are stronger and easier to handle. As a result, the strength of the Roman legions is increased due to political stability in the Indian subcontinent. With the conquest of Egypt, the trade between Rome and India increased. With the technology borrowed from the Mauryans, the Romans strengthened their navy earlier on, and with a strong navy and a stronger army, the Romans conquer Britain earlier than they did in our timeline. With the stronger legions, the Romans also subjugate Pictish Scotland and Ireland into their realms. The Romans also assert their dominance over all of North Africa and Germania in this timeline. Under the High Kings of Bharatverse Confederacy, Buddhism and Hinduism, or rather a composite of the two religions, is propagated to faraway lands of Central Asia and the Kievan Rus. The local populations adopt these religions more easily as compared to the Abrahamic religions, owing to the similarity of Hinduism and Buddhism to their own faith. Eventually, the Indian religions are also propagated to the southern tip of Arabian Peninsula and parts of Ethiopia. And people, even from the Roman Empire, start more readily converting to these religions as compared to Christianity. With help of weapons made out of Damascus steel, the Han Chinese are able to conquer and subjugate the Mongolian tribes. This means that there is no rise of the Mongolian Khanate. Overall, this is a world of a strong Roman Empire, which might last longer than it did in our timeline. It is also of a strong China allied with the Indians. It is also a world where the Mongol Khanate doesn't rise, and the Indians have colonies in Southeast Asia. This is also a world where Buddhism, Hinduism, and other Asiatic religions are more popular than the Abrahamic faiths. Well, it isn't a bad timeline we have created, is it? I, for one, would like to visit it someday. Anyways, I would rest this now.